First order of business is TCU Consulting. Come on up. We'll go through this as quick as we can.
I'll do it.
Yes,
it's
sir.
a little long, but I'm going to blow through it. And I want to start by apologizing. I don't see Jacob here, but he didn't write fake news. I told him I screwed up, and I apologize, and am real embarrassed by that. But technology is not my strongest suit. I'm Ken Upchurch, and I have delivered the final report to McKinsey as of this afternoon late. This PowerPoint, even though it's pretty lengthy, is about a third the length of the regular report. And I'm going to blow through a lot of this, specifically some of the specifics on the data. I'll give you some high points because what I want to do is really get to the meat of the report because I know you've got less than an hour to get this through. All right, McKinsey. Okay, so our engagement responsibilities was to look at two completely separate pieces but interrelated, the jail and the detention facility, and then a classification and pay study. Under the jail, you'll see we gathered data, we programmed it, we developed options, we developed budgets, we developed new operational costs, we developed some conclusions, not recommendations, but conclusions, and we have some next steps for you. And then on the classification of the pay study, as you know, we only did the sworn officers of the sheriff's office because with a possibility of a new jail, a new county administrator, we felt like it was more important that you allowed the new administrator to have some input into the non-sworn officers. So that's it, McKinsey. So on the data collection, we started off with just demographics. Most of this you probably know. Population between 2000 and 2016 in Pike County averaged about 33,500. Racial makeup was 58% white, 36% African American, and 6% other, 48% male, 52% female. You can see the ages. The crime statistics in 2012 there were 1,289. In 2016 there were 1,460. That's a 13% increase over those 4 years. Historical arrests by crime, drug-related, in 2012 there was 64, 2016 78, 22% increase. In violent offenses in 2012 were 430, and in 2016 there were 456, 6% increase. McKinsey. The district and circuit court caseloads, you can see in district court that were filed in 2013 was 150 cases, 2017 315 cases, 116% increase. District court cases filed 2018 to date are 120, so you can see they're still tracking up and probably at least match 2017, if not exceed it. Circuit court cases, you can see that had about a 376% increase. And then the filed cases to date, 119. Again, halfway through the year, that's probably going to exceed last year. So you've got crime cases going up. The inmate data, the average monthly booking in 2010 was 67, and in 2017 it was 79. The average monthly releases in 2010 was 68, and in 17 it was 80. The inmate population by gender is 81% male, 19% female. And you can see the age difference with the predominance being between 20 and 50. McKinsey. So one of the problems that we had that increased the study time of this is that for the last 10 years, plus or minus, your jail population has remained flat, and it's because that your courts, your sheriff, your district attorney, everybody's working really hard to deal with the jail situation that they have. But if you just looked at the inmate population, you would begin to argue as to what size jail you need to have, because you've operated for a pretty good while at somewhere between 65 and 70 inmates. But when you look at the crime statistics, the arrest certificates, and they're going up, it tells you that y'all's law enforcement down here, judges, sheriff, district attorney, and others are probably doing a model that the state ought to look at, because it's really been pretty phenomenal. But it's been at a cost. And so what you've got currently in your security classifications, you've got basically on average 6 beds that are minimum security, 44 beds that are medium security, 16 beds that are maximum security, and special management or health and those sort of things. But you can see that your jail population has remained virtually flat through the last 8 years of this report, and actually it goes back even further than that. Mackenzie? So what this chart is, and it's hard to read, but the bottom line is the average daily population by year. You can see it was 68 in 2010, 68 in 2011, and in 2017 it was 54. But flat across there, it averages about 65 inmates over that 8-year period, regardless of the months. There's some spikes in there. Mackenzie? So, again, you start trying to make your inmate bed projections based on your numbers, and you look at the projection methodologies, you try to project the future bed needs, you look at the average daily population, you put a peaking factor in there for weekends and holidays. You've got a population control factor. That's what the judges and the sheriffs and the DAs and all of that stuff have been controlling so well on y'all's behalf. And you got security classifications. So the formula that we worked off of, our initial assessment was somewhere around, based on the crime statistics, the district court and the circuit court case filings and adjudications, probably said that you needed somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 175 beds. But when we backed it back down by putting in that population control factor and the security classification factors, you see that our calculations show that in 2022, you're going to need 107 beds, 2027, 113 beds, 2032, 121 beds, and by 2037, which is how far we calculated out, you need 129 beds. Again, you could fill that up tomorrow based on some of your statistics. You could fill 175 up in 10 years based on some of your statistics. But we believe, in talking with the judges and the DA, that many of the population control factors will remain in effect because you've gotten used to doing it. And so it'll allow you, the 129 beds is our belief is more than adequate for you through 2037. And there are other things that we'll talk about in a minute that can help you with that. Mackenzie? So this is, you can't read this chart very well, but it's in the PowerPoint presentation that you have, and it's also in the final report. This just breaks down by year the growth and what is in that growth to get to the 129 that you see in the far right-hand corner. Mackenzie? So this chart breaks it down by gender and by classification. Again, the key factor is that the total number of beds is 129. This is how we built the model. This is how we program the space as we get ready to talk about that. This PowerPoint presentation has a lot of charts in it, but only about a third the number of charts that are in the final report. So I'm just trying to hit some of the highlights, but if you have any questions, stop me as I go through this. Okay, Mackenzie? So now we move to the programming of the jail, which means what goes in a new jail of this 129. You'll see that it's jail administration, security operations center, master control and dispatch area, vehicular sally port, law enforcement lobby, intake booking, inmate property, court staging, transfers and releases, medical, health, kitchen and laundry, inmate housing for the 4 classifications, housing support, building support, and additional parking and impound area. All of this came out of our meetings with the sheriff and Kelly and how the jail is operating. We also looked at the possibility of, if you programmed a new sheriff's office, what all would be required within that facility. You'd have sheriff's administration, you'd have a patrol division, you'd have detective division, you'd have records and identification, you'd have evidence storage, building support, and vehicular parking. Okay? So this is how, by square foot, the jail component would break down. And you will see that in the far right-hand corner, the new jail for the 129 inmates, based on standards set by the corrections institutions and the monitoring authorities, your new jail will be 41,226 square feet. And you can see what makes up that same list that I just went over is broken down by square footage. The net to gross factor is corridors and bathrooms and the auxiliary spaces that go along with the various office sizes or control areas. And you can see that the biggest part of that is down in the cells, the last 4 or 5 numbers, 5,500, 6,200, 5,700, 7,400. So you can see over half of it is actual cell space. Okay, Mackenzie? So this is how the sheriff's office would break down. It would net out at roughly 7,500 square feet. And then you've got about 28,000 square feet of new impound area. Okay. So, on the options, we're going to show you 7 options. They all have pluses and minuses. They all have subsets. I won't spend a lot of time tonight talking about the subsets because this is going to be a lot of information to absorb. But and you'll see this in some of our conclusions, what we're going to suggest to you is that y'all take the full reports, study them, write your questions in them, and then we'll come back to a work session or special meeting to work through not only your questions, but some of our thoughts on the subsets and that sort of stuff. So option number 1, we were asked to look at a global picture. And so option number 1 puts the new jail in the parking lot just south of the existing courthouse. Because it's going in that parking lot, it would require the initial construction of a 2-level parking deck. This depicts the deck coming on across on top of the old jail. It would be built in phases, but the first thing you would have to do was to build parking for the parking that's displaced in the south parking lot. This also shows the sheriff's office moving out of the existing courthouse. It shows the DA's space being cobbled up by the new facility, so the DA moves into a new facility. Y'all currently rent space for juvenile probation and voting machine storage and other things. So all of that would go into this complex. It would also include a connector from the new jail to the courthouse. It includes a lot of renovation of the existing courthouse. Depending on how that flows, the county commission most possibly could move back into the county, into the courthouse in the area vacated by the sheriff. After the DA's building is removed, you get additional parking back there. So your parking count actually goes up depending on how much of that parking deck you build, but it would be built in two stages. Any question on that particular option? Okay. Option number 2 is the jail only with a connector to the courthouse. Sheriff would remain in the courthouse. The county commission would not have the opportunity to move back downtown. There'd be very little renovation in the existing courthouse, only in the area where the connector comes in and some security components of that connection. Again, you would have to build at least 2/3 of the parking deck before you could start the construction of the jail because you're displacing most of the parking on the south side. In this option, the DA remains. That parking down by the DA, between the DA and the Board of Ed, stays. And then once the jail is removed, you'd come back and add any additional parking. Right now, on certain days, you're short parking. That's why we're showing additional parking by increasing the size of the deck. But realize that you build the deck first, build the jail, tear the old jail down, and add to the parking deck. That would be the sequence in this scenario. Any questions on this one? virtually no renovation in the existing courthouse. Okay, option 3 is the exact same as option 2, with the exception that we have built a new sheriff's office attached to the jail. The DA stays where it is. The connector goes back to the original courthouse. Parking deck, again, 2/3 of it have to be built initially. The second part could be added if and when you deemed it necessary. The county commission would have the possibility of moving back to the general courthouse for their commission offices. The problem would be there's not enough room for a room this size in the courthouse. You'd have to use one of the courtrooms for your commission chambers. If you decided to do that, there would be room for you to move back down there as far as your offices and operations are concerned. But you would still continue in either option 2 or 3 to rent space for juvenile probation and rent space for voting machine storage. Any questions on this one? Okay, option number 4. This is the new jail built where the existing jail is. It would cause the current 60 to 70 inmates to be relocated off-site, which has all kind of negative issues as far as transportation and getting them to court and all of that sort of stuff, logistics, and you'll see the cost of that a little later in the presentation. But other than putting the sheriff under the gun for a year to 18 months, this one has the least amount of disruption of any of them. You don't have to build a parking deck. None of your parking is disturbed for your existing courthouse. It does have a connector to the existing courthouse as the other options, but you'll see some of the logistic areas and what it costs a little later in the presentation. All right, so this one puts the jail on the north side of the courthouse. We looked at the possibility of not doing a parking deck and put parking on that particular property, but as you know, there's a big ravine through there. And 2 things happen. One, you can't get enough parking on that particular piece of ground to replace the parking that would be displaced if you put the jail south of south of the courthouse. And the other thing is that you're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 to 8,000 cubic yards of dirt that has to be hauled right through the middle of Troy to get to that site, and the disruption to the community would be, and to the road infrastructure, probably would be cost prohibitive. So we said, all right, if you can't put the parking over there, what about putting the jail over there? It fits. It does take some special foundations, does take some amount of fill, but not as much, because it's high on the east side of that property, it's low on the west side, so you can have some balancing on, and with the special foundations, you don't have to have all that fill. So the jail fits over there. Actually works right nicely. That parking deck is not required because you still have all of your existing parking. We showed that it could be put in if you wanted to add parking. And the way any of these decks work, and I should have mentioned this on the first one, is they don't have ramps built within the deck because of your grade constitution. You can come in on the first level off of the parking lot level, and you can come in the lower levels just like you come into the impound lot that's behind the current jail because of the topography. So that it's a split level deck, but you don't have any ramps, so it's very, very cost efficient. You would not need this deck in this option unless you just wanted to add parking. But it does fit just like it fits in the other areas after the existing jail is put down. And you could decide this down the road. You wouldn't have to make this expenditure up front. Okay, Mackenzie? All right, this one's the same option with the exception we've added the sheriff's office up on the front of the new jail. It works really well up there. It also ties in very well to the existing jail and gives you some ability in the courthouse to possibly bring the county commission back down there. Both of these options have the same connector to the courthouse, and if you don't put the sheriff's office out there with the new jail, the only renovation to the courthouse is at the connector, similar to options 2 and 3. Again, the parking deck is something you could do now or later after the existing jail is put in. You don't need it. Neither of these two options are disruptive to current operations, so they have less challenges operationally and logistically than when you put the jail in the south parking lot. Okay, McKenzie. So then we dreamed really big and said, okay, what if you took it off site? We looked at several sites around town, priced them. But this one is, this solution has it out at the engineering and maintenance facility area that you already own the land. It takes the court administration and the judges out there. It takes the jail out there. It takes the sheriff's office out there. It takes the impound lot out there. There's room, it's not included at this point, for the DA to go out there should he want to. And it also includes a lot of storage area for the juvenile probation or the voting machines. But when you empty out the courthouse of the judicial function, you've got a lot of space in there for the county commission to go back in. You've got growth opportunities in there. You can take many of your operations that are off-site, currently in rental facilities, and bring them back into the courthouse. So while it's a dream big, it also has a lot of advantages. Got some disadvantages. The community's used to coming to downtown to do all its business. Many of the operations that the community comes to, other than the court-related, would still be in the existing facilities. So other than for jury duty and for court activity, they would still go downtown, but everything else would go out here. Hang on 1 second, Mackenzie. Let me get to my page because I won't be able to read that screen. So any questions on the options at this point? All right, now the question is going to be, what's it cost?
Let me ask you one before you get to where it costs. And this is, I think I know the answer, but I don't want to assume.
Okay.
Every option except for the one where we move off-site is 3 stories.
That's right.
All right, is there just not enough room, or
That's correct.
what's the limiting factor?
That's correct. So before I get to the dollars, 3 stories really works well with the layout between the program cells for separation of men and women, medium, security, minimum, maximum, special needs, and trustees. So you either, if you go 2 stories, it gets much bigger. If you go 3 stories, it functions better and it doesn't increase your staff. If you made it smaller, which we looked at in the south parking lot or the north parking lot, by going 4 stories, it increases your staff requirements. So we feel like that the most efficient operational downtown is the 3-story model. From a construction standpoint and from a future growth standpoint, the off-site version is much more economical and advantageous to it because it's 1 story, and it's got the ability to add to it if you should ever. That's one of the downsides of the downtown site, is that if you ever have to add, you got some issues. All right, so what's it going to cost? Option 1, Mackenzie, you can go. It's going to be way too small for the people to see. But option number 1, which is the big version downtown, is roughly $28.9 million. That's the court, the jail, the sheriff's office, the DA, juvenile probation, and election storage. The option number 2, which is the jail only in the parking lot, is $19.6 million. Now realize that includes the parking deck, which is a pretty expensive piece of that jail. The third option, which is similar to number 2, but has the sheriff office building being built out there, is $21,700,000. So you can see that the sheriff office going out there is right at $2.1 million. Number 4 with the jail at the existing operations is $24 million. It's jail only, $24,029,000. But remember, that has all of the cost of taking those inmates out and doing something with them for the period of construction, transportation, what the sheriff has to pay to have them out there. It's nearly a $3 million number. And so while it is an option, it's probably for value, the most expensive value and the most logistically challenged of all of them. Going to the north side with the jail only is $24 million. The north side with the jail, excuse me. The $24 million is the jail in the existing location. The north side with the jail only is $20,600,000. The jail on the north side with the sheriff office out there is $21,786,000. And if you'll notice, the jail only and the sheriff office in the south, there was approximately $2.1 million difference between them. In this option, there is only about $1.7 million because you've got a much more efficient footprint on the north side than you do in the existing south parking lot. So you save that money. And then the big complex off-site is almost $28 million, $27.9 million. So you see that you've got a variety of cost points. You see in there that we've got this thing broken down between construction cost and program cost. Program cost is all of your soft costs. That's your architectural fees. That's your testing fees. That's your commissioning. That's your furniture and equipment. It's just everything other than raw construction price. The goal is to try to stay at about 80% construction and about 20% soft cost, and everything you can drive the soft cost down below 20% and put into construction, you're better off. So those are the sort of rules of thumb. Now let's talk about these numbers a minute. We had to make some assumptions. Go back, Mackenzie. Yeah. We had to make some assumptions about the timing of this. The construction market right now is white hot, and construction prices are continuing to go up. We think that there will be some softening and flattening of construction numbers in the next 12 to 18 months, but then we think it'll get white hot again. So we've tried to hit a sweet spot in here. We don't want to be the low bidder, because then if we're not, you're very surprised. There's places within this that numbers can come down depending on how you ultimately do your design, and you'll find that's one of our next steps in this thing. So every client gets sticker shock immediately when they see numbers like this, but we feel very confident that you can make your program on any of these options for a little less money than what's shown here, and whether that's 10% or 15%, I'm not prepared to say today. But we've got escalation costs built into these numbers, and we've got contingency numbers built into this. Because if you've ever done a construction project, there's always something that you want to do a little different, and money goes up. And so we've given you some numbers that we feel comfortable with, that you can live within, and they're all relative values. So if you made a change to the square footage of the jail, and I'll get to that in a minute, but all of these would be relative across the board. So while they look like big numbers, and they are big numbers, we feel comfortable that based on the requirements of all the authorities that will be looking at you, this is the range in which you're going to spend your construction dollars, your program dollars. And again, remember, it's not just jail. It's got a parking deck in most of these options. And we'll break these numbers are actually broken down in the report that you've seen. This is just a summary. All right, Mackenzie. So then you build it, and you got to operate it. And that's one of the things that y'all have been very adamant about. So this is a summary of some of that. Your 2013 operating budget for wages and salaries was $424,000. Your 2018 operating budget was $501,000, and that's a 18% increase from 2013 to 2018. All other operating costs on the jail, this is not the sheriff's office, this is strictly the jail. All other operating costs in the 2013 budget was $134,000, and in the 2018 budget it was $167,000. So over that 5-year period, nearly 6-year period, you had a 24% increase. So your total operating budget for 2013 was $559,400, and then the budget for this year is $668,175, net increase of 19%. Okay, Mackenzie. So what happens in 2021 if you open the jail in 2021? The personnel services, which is salary and wages, goes from 13 people to 37 people if you bring them all on that first year. That's something you don't have to do, but that's how we built the model. Your 2021 operating budget for salary and wages will be $1,513,000, and in 2031 that increases to $2,021,000. Your other operating cost, 2021 would be $325,000, and in 2031 it'd be $463,000. And so your total operating cost in 2021, if you open the jail in that year, would be $1,838,000, and in 2031 it'd be $2,484,000. Okay, Mackenzie. Now those all look like big numbers, but this next slide is going to break that down a little bit for you. Your staffing currently is, in fact, actually it's a little less than 13 right now, but the budget was built on 13. Your 2021 staffing model is 37. That's a 185% increase for new employees. Your staffing budget was built, operational part of it was 501 versus the 2021 budget of $1,005,000. It's a 202% increase for the operation of the new jail. But if you look at 2018, your current facility is 12,000 feet. The 2021 jail is 41,226 because of the two things. One, the 129, and two, you've been housing 60-something inmates at 200 square feet of an inmate basically in an old jail that was designed for much less than that. So that's a 244% increase in the facility size against only a 185% increase in the operational piece. The operational cost of 134 versus the 2021 of 184 is a 63% increase based on square footages. That shows you that while you're increasing the square footage of 244%, you're only increasing your operational cost for that extra square feet by 63%. So you're operating a much more efficient building. And depending on how it staffs up, all of those 2021 numbers come down. It's built on a full jail the day you open it in 2021, and I don't think that will happen. So one of the things that we'll have to work with you and the judges on is to bring those numbers more in line of what the real expectations are. But we couldn't build it. The old adage is, if you build it, they'll come. And we couldn't, in good conscience, build you a model that said the jail or the staffing was going to be less than full the day you opened it. So,
Each model is going to require 37 employees.
Yes, sir. The jail, regardless of where it goes, the jail is the same square footage and same number of inmates. Now, if it goes out to the roads and stuff, there is an opportunity to tighten it up. The other thing that's not reflected in this is, again, just like the judges, the sheriff, the district attorney, and everyone involved have done a good job of maintaining the inmate population level. The sheriff and Kelly have done an incredible job of maintaining very, very lean staff. And there's nothing to say that won't happen again, too. But those are things that we couldn't build into these models because we just don't know at this point. And you're going to see some of that in this pay classification study that's coming up in just a few minutes. But Can you operate a 129 inmate jail with less than 37? What you're doing today says you can. How much less, I'm not sure. But did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what factor did you use on that? So many employees, so many inmates, or?
No, you'll see. It wasn't a factor. It's not in this, Chad. It's in the full study, but it breaks down the number of staff and what their duties are based in the new jail, and it compares to what you currently have. I just didn't put that chart in this report. Okay, Mackenzie. So, conclusions. The need for a new jail and detention facility in Pike County is without debate. You got to have one. Now, which way you go is clearly up for debate, but you need a new jail. The pertinent question is, what's the most beneficial and effective strategy for the Pike County Commission to execute the replacement of the current facility? Based on the information we're going to provide you and we'll continue to work with you on, that's the main question you've got to answer is, what do we do based on all the data that's been provided? All 7 options have viable solutions and each have their own unique advantages and challenges. For instance, if the jail is built in the south parking lot, even with the parking deck built back there, there's going to be a lot of congestion in that area between construction, your normal jail activities, your normal court activities, all of that. It's going to be like somebody kicked over an ant bed right in the middle of town. And security concerns, and we address these all more specifically in the main report under each option. But any of the options in the south parking lot, regardless of the first 3, are very, very challenging and have a lot of auxiliary issues that play into them, and it'll have to take a lot of phasing, a lot of scheduling, a lot of work between all the players in the thing. But they all work. The Pike County Commission needs to evaluate the advantages and challenges. Those are listed in the full report for each option, and then answer that question. What's best for Pike County? And so we'll be along, Mackenzie. So next steps, you need to take the report and study it, evaluate it, digest it, write questions in the margins, do your due diligence. Then we'll come back and discuss those questions and thoughts with you. We'll discuss strategies that we have of how you implement, change, modify any of the options. One thing we know for certain is that none of those options will be accepted just exactly as they are. There'll be modifications to every one of them. And so what we've done is try to give you the tools in which to ask the right questions so that you can then answer the question, what's best for Pike County? We'll conduct public meetings if you want us to assist you in gathering the data that the public has on all of these various options. We think that comes after we've met with y'all and discussed strategies so that we can preface any of those meetings by additional thoughts that have come to light as you have them. And then we'll respond with a supplemental report addressing those questions, strategies, and begin to help you make the case for the decision that you've made. So that, I'm going to do the classification study in a minute, but that's the end of the jail part of this presentation, and I'll stop and see if there are any questions that y'all may have right now. Okay? Kinsey? Robin, do you have one?
No, sir. Let's go.
Just the sticker shot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Everywhere you go, when you start talking about millions, this sticker
sir.
shot doesn't matter whether it's 1 million or 10 million.
Yep.
All right. So the second part of this, and that we were asked to do, was look at the classification and pay study for the Pike County Sheriff's sworn staff. As I said earlier, the original engagement required that we do it for all the Pike County employees, but we decided to stop on the sworn staff because of the change in administration and how that might affect how departments are organized, job classifications are written, job descriptions are written, etc. So this is on the sheriff's office only, and it's only for his sworn staff. We were charged with developing a market-based pay program, and what that means is that you're paying based on the market you're in so that you can remain competitive with your wages, reduce turnover. But again, one of the models that y'all have is basically the sheriff's department has very little turnover. And there are a lot of places that would love to have that relationship. And whatever he's doing probably ought to be a model for some of his constituents. But anyway, we got to determine market compatibility. We got to group and evaluate the jobs. We've got to develop a policy, a pay policy line. You'll see that in here. And then we've got to align that graph goal to an actual pay structure. And then you got to start implementing the pay structure. And then you got to administer the pay structure. So basically what we're doing is taking and building a additional program that's a little bit more complex and a little bit more statistically correct than what you're doing right now. All right, Mackenzie. So the first thing you got to do is analyze and document the jobs. That first bullet point is the key. The job analysis is the most fundamental process in human resource management. It's the systematic study of the jobs in an organization and is used for the basis of everything that comes forward from that, which is developing and validating selection procedures, that's hiring, ensuring compliance with laws and regulations, identifying reporting relationships, who reports to who, determining the relative worth of a particular job at any particular time along a career, determine the rates of pay that are relevant to the labor market, establishing proper training programs, and developing performance and appraisal systems. So that's something that we've built, and you'll see a supplemental report that will come with our main report that is pretty detailed. But we want to be sure that the basis of what's in the report we've issued to you is correct before we issue the supplemental report. All right, Mackenzie. So, again, I talked about the ability for this sheriff and his people to work relative. What this shows you is that his office is grossly understaffed, and I don't use the word grossly lightly. You can see once you go to studying this and the additional charts that he's doing more with less than the surrounding counties. That second sentence in the thing, these ratios are higher to significantly higher for the population served by the other counties in the sample, all except Shelby. So that says it all. All right, Mackenzie. So, market comparability. Who are you competing against for your labor? We looked at law enforcement. We said, who are the competitors? They're the police departments, sheriff departments, and Alabama State Troopers. And what's the geography? It's the Montgomery Metropolitan Statistical Area, because most of your competition is not going to be from other smaller counties. It's going to be that Montgomery is hiring them away from you if the pay scales are different. So, okay, Mackenzie. Y'all stop me anytime you have a question. This one, again, is market comparability. The average pay by rank for Pike County right now is below the existing mid-range points except for the rank of captain, which is approximately equal to the mid-range point. And mid-range is where you want to be. And the average pay for all ranks is below the market rate. It's only slightly below the market rate. You'll see that in the graph that we're going to present, but it is technically below the market rate. The range of midpoints compared to the market rate, approximately equal to the market rate for the rank of deputy, somewhat below for the ranks of sergeant and lieutenant, and considerably below for the rank of captain. You'll see that outlier in that. And these have results for both pay ranges and individual employees' positions within the range. Kenzie? So this is the pay policy line, and you can see across the bottom is the grades. Those are the steps along a person's journey through a career. And it's hard to see in this graph, but you can see that your rates and the median rates are pretty much exactly the same. There's a little bit below and a little bit above at certain places, but basically you are following the mid-range of all your salaries. All right, Kenzie? So this is a pay structure. This is just one that we developed that would be a guide as you begin to move forward and develop your final strategies. And what it does is it takes the grades, it takes the officers, and it sets the pay grades at the various steps through a particular job description's career. And again, you can't really read it from this, but you can see in the report that it's tracking pretty similar to that pay line that was before. Kenzie? So, job analysis process, that's a fancy way of saying we're going to write job descriptions to match the pay grades and the pay policy line. So we did this with every officer in every position in the Sheriff's Department. You prepare a job analysis worksheet, you ask them what it is they do, and you compare it against the current job description that they have. You hold interviews, at least 2 of them, with the people currently holding the job and the supervisors, and obtain consensus regarding the responsibilities, tasks, knowledge, skills, abilities, credential, experience, and special requirements for every single position. Then you prepare a final copy of the job analysis worksheet, submit it to the sheriff, and then once the sheriff approves it, you begin to have a job description. So again, this is all built around rewriting the job descriptions for the Pike County Sheriff's sworn staff. The reason for this is so that you give entry-level positions certain responsibilities and certain pay steps and pay grades. And as they climb through their career, either in that particular job or move to a different job, you've got a systematic way that you can add job descriptions commensurate with increases in pay. Kenzie? So our study and writing of the job descriptions identified some additional positions that probably should be considered. IT and telecommunications administrator is one of them. The chief deputy is presently handling these responsibilities without the necessary staff. It may not be necessary that this is a sworn title. Some sheriff's departments don't have sworn people do this, but they have a title of a staff sergeant, and we've built a job description for that. Other immediate needs in order of priority is the deputy sheriff, an investigator. The deputy sheriff is 4 to 5 positions, investigator is 1. During the next 3 to 5 years, consideration should be given to establishing positions for a training officer and a school resource officer. Again, this goes back to show you that right now it's being operated very leanly, but very efficiently. And so you get caught up in both this and the efficiency in which y'all have been running your jail and your court system. And it makes the numbers very hard to identify, which took us longer, which is why we're late, other than the fact that I just screwed up last week. But the other side of that is that to deal with the sticker shock, you've got to challenge our assumptions of 129 inmates. You've got to challenge our assumptions on whether or not these are the right square footages. We've worked with Kelly and we've worked with the sheriff to come up with these. But y'all hold the purse strings. And so there needs to be a collaborative meeting of the minds now that you have the information in which to identify where you want to be. It's no different than when you build a house and your wife wants one thing and you want something else. It's no different when you build an office building and you start looking at the needs and the wants. And so what we believe is that this report, both on the jail and detention facility and on the classification and pay study, give you the roadmap in which to proceed, but it's not determined that any of these are the exact answer. There'll probably be a hybrid of some of these solutions throughout the next few weeks or months, or however long you deal with this. That's our report. We've given the hard copies to McKinsey, and she'll issue them. We didn't want to bring them out right now because we wanted you to follow the presentation. But they're pretty lengthy. They're full of a lot of data, and you're just going to need to take your time and go through it. The worst thing you can do is rush to a decision on this. It's too important. That's all I have.
Anything else? Thank y'all very much for your time and effort.
Thank you.
We'll study and get back with you.
We're ready when you are.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Ken, while you're walking back, just a quick question, because I'm sure there's going to be some intermediate questions.
Sure.
So I'm assuming it'll be okay with you. We'll funnel all that through McKinsey
Absolutely.
so that you're not answering multiple,
Absolutely.
the same questions. And
Absolutely.
5 or 6 of
What we would typically do, Chad, is that we would gather them for about a week or so and then send her a response rather than just like that, because some of them will take time to study. Some of them will be really easy, but we try not to clog everybody's email. And so whether you have them or whether the community has them, if they'll send it to McKinsey, we'll send them back to her, and y'all can discuss with her how she distributes them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sheriff, you got anything to add? Okay. Kelly? Where's Kelly?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Y'all, let's run through the agenda as quick as we can. Russell?
Good evening. Good evening. Under new business, we have our annual bids that we just need approval to go ahead and advertise for those 6 bids. Pretty much the same thing we did last year for goods and services. And then under our monthly project update, we do have the agreements and the resolution for you to pass for the 2 resurfacing projects down in Henderson, the 2 federal aid projects. We got these agreement forms and resolution forms after the agenda was put together, so we made you a copy there. But we will request that you go ahead and suspend the rules tonight if you need to. I mean, that's been under our project update before, so that's an ongoing project. So, but we do need to get those approved. Those projects will be let this Friday in the ALDOT letting. So we're excited. The total of the 2 estimates, there's actually 2 resolutions, one for each project. And the total of the 2 is about $1.74 million. And that includes all of the indirect cost and all the E&I and everything. So hopefully that's the worst case scenario, and that's right in line with what we've been thinking. And I will mention, this is written in your monthly project update in your agenda package, but I will point out that ALDOT has approved an advance of next year's federal aid allocation in the amount of approximately $220,000. It'll be whatever's required after the bids come in, but just want to point that out and make sure everybody understands that will be a requirement. So that'll leave us less than, somewhere around $330,000 next year instead of $533 in the federal aid balance. And then the only other thing we have is under current business. We're still running an advertisement for the 2 operator positions. And I will mention under the industrial access project that we got an email Thursday that CDG has reached a milestone in their plan development. ALDOT calls it the 30% submittal. So they've submitted that, and they've completed all of their geotech work in the field. So they're working on the materials report now. So they should have us a build-up back any day. So that's moving along. but no action is required right now on either one of those.
That's 3 and 4.
That is down under current business, number 1 and number 3 and 4, right?
Okay, go ahead.
That's all we had. It's just that the only 2 items requiring approval will be the annual bids and the 2 resolutions for the federal aid resurfacing projects.
Questions for the engineer?
Oh, I also, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I failed to mention, you did get a memo like this with the cost estimate that you requested at your last meeting.
Okay.
To resurface the east end of County Road 3314.
Okay. Question? None? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, we had a spring and more. I've been on it, but it hadn't been touched.
The spraying is complete. They did miss one spot that we had to get them back to, and I'm not sure if they've come back for that one yet or not. But it has been completed, and you know we're seeing results, especially in the areas they sprayed first. And so hopefully they'll begin mowing right around Labor Day, so in maybe about a month or a month and a half from now.
Now, I'm going to 7757, this number is spring.
Okay.
That it? Anybody else? Thank you, Ross. EMA?
Mr. Herb's not here tonight.
Okay. Attorney's report?
No report tonight.
Commission reports, we are requesting an executive session for good name and character, which falls under the guidelines, that's all I know.
Also on the commissioner report, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a map came in by Thad Nancy, it's about his building, it's gonna be sold. We want the commissioners to look at it, maybe we can put the juvenile officer in there, maybe stuff, and join all the buildings together.
Anybody else? Okay, administrator.
Okay, first under the administrator's report, we have the budget, and this was just put on here to let y'all know it's getting that time of year, and we need to see about setting up some budget hearings when y'all would like to start doing that.
Okay.
However y'all would like to do, if y'all want to do it before or after meetings, just let us know.
We probably need to do the first one beginning at about 3 p.m. That will allow all the other elected officials to come in and present us their budget and run it so that it coincides with the regular meeting. And we'll cut it off at 5 and then begin our meeting at 5:15, and then that'll be the first one.
Okay, so
And then
we'll
the
go
rest
ahead.
of them, we'll probably do in conjunction with the commission.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and set those for August the 13th. I think we've gotten all the requests
All right,
that
so
we'd sent out.
August 13th will be the 3 p.m. budget hearing.
And there's no other action on that. We also put in the minute, unless y'all have any more questions about that right now.
Go ahead.
Okay. Also, we've got a line of credit at First National Bank that has become due. This was on a line of credit that we obtained to be able to do the culvert work, the bridge replacement, culvert replacement that we did down in Goshen when they had the emergency failure.
Yeah.
We have not been able to get the reimbursement from the state. You may know more about that, Russell, about what's been the problem, the hold up on getting that back, but the line of credit comes due July the 31st. And right now, we don't have the big portion of it back from the state. We're still waiting on that. We are going to have an interest payment due on July 31st on that line, and we will need to extend that line. We've got some paperwork from them to extend it through December the 31st. We will need y'all to suspend the rules and make a vote on suspending that.
Yeah, the interest due is $81.95. Is where
That's
we're going to
correct.
do that out of general fund?
I would think gas tax, that's usually
Gas
where
tax.
we pay for any kind of interest when it's something's barred like that, when it's for the gas tax fund. I think that's where we paid for it before when we've had lines of credit.
And
Correct?
the money's in there to do that with? Okay. Go ahead.
Question. And I know we talked about this earlier, and I didn't think about this, but if what was our match? This is 80-20?
Yes.
think this was 80-20 state. So if we paid off our portion plus the interest, that might save us a little interest as well. Is the money there to do that now?
Yes, we could go ahead and pay the other. We're looking at getting about $415,000 back, I believe. So there'll still be about $77,000 left on the line that's not going to be covered by reimbursement from the state.
So if we took care of all of that at the same time, then at least we'd be saving interest on
Yes.
$77,000.
Yes, I would recommend you pay it off as soon as we get that money in
So-
from the state.
If the money's there to do that, we might want to go ahead and tackle it all if we can. Obviously, we can't take the state reimbursement part of it. The part we want to pay anyway.
Right.
Any more questions on that? Go ahead.
Do we want to pay that out of,
I'm assuming take care of it the same way.
okay.
All of it gonna come out of gas tank.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we have there.
This year.
Right. Do we have that $77,000 in the gas tank? Pay that?
Yesterday, Will, with their transfers. There's some transfers.
Okay.
Okay, so the money's there.
So we want to go ahead and pay all that except for what we're going to get back
Right.
from the state.
Gotcha.
Okay. But I will, during the regular meeting, I'll ask y'all to suspend the rules to extend that line because we may or may not get that back from the state before the 31st of
All
July.
right.
Okay. Next would be under current business. You've got personnel for the county administrator.
We'll talk about that at the regular meeting.
Okay. The Pike County Emergency Management Communications District right now, they're still working on some information, hopefully have something for us at the meeting on August the 13th. We're still working on the sound system for the commission chambers, so I don't have anything to report on that tonight. The Pike County Jail, of course, y'all heard the report tonight, and I don't think anybody's ready to do anything quite yet, so we'll just forward that on the agenda. We are still working on the Pike County Volunteer Firefighters agreements, so we don't have anything for y'all tonight on that. And then we also have PATS up under current business, and I believe we're trying to work with the city of Troy and the committee and trying to set up some kind of meeting to talk with them about that. So I don't have anything on that tonight.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you. Anything else from the commission at this time? Okay, the work session will come to a close. We'll take about a 5-minute recess and come back for our regular meeting.
Come on now, speak for yourself. All I'm saying is,
Throw the scripts out. Listen, Whitlock, I'm a polarized fire starter. Whitlock has created a fire. This corrupt system.
calm down.
Stop. I am what I am.
Here's my problem with what has happened in the American media. We have deep-rooted issues.
Howard, who goes to a stadium looking for an opinion?
Here comes the Twitter avalanche. That's the way you do it.
You saying anybody could become a member of a cult?
They put their trust into something that turned out to be a monster.
I'm the only branded person who's publicly speaking about it.
You could have a potential Waco on your hands.
This is going to be one of the worst things this country has seen.
We were being groomed by a master pedophile.
The best in the country have arrived.
This is what it feels like to be a Food Network star.
And their chance at stardom starts
Right now, it's about to go down.
all new Food Network Star, Sunday night at 9.
Boom! My beautiful wife is having our third baby any day now. What do you remember about when I was born?
They thought you were a girl.
Well, that's great. Dad wants to hit the road. This time, we're bringing along my sister Kelly.
You, I was right. I'm not dumb. You are. But you want me to manipulate
This
Dad?
is Women and Master Manipulators.
And you know what you are? A master.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Dun, dun, dun.
Not sure what to do. It's really deep.
Mongolia is a very unforgiving land.
Cold is an incredibly strong punch in the face.
That sounds like a bear.
The bar is definitely raised.
Listen,
I'm trying to talk.
I don't know what you're talking about, man.
We're literally going to double in size.
I mean, all the more important to stay in communication. Good talk.
On an all-new season of Man v Food, if you dream it, they will make it. Ghost pepper barbecue ribs, 2-foot Vietnamese sub, giant ice cream crepe. Holy grape, holy grape, holy grape. And if they make it, he will come.
Is this heaven?
No, it's Man v Food.
I made it!
All new Man v Food, Monday at 9 on Travel Channel.
We are about 70% water. Pool Kings gets that. New episodes. Amazing pools.
Let's go on the flow. Let's go on the flow.
I love those water features.
There are no words. It's ridiculous.
Life is simple. Just add water. All new Pool Kings, Monday night at 9, only on DIY Network.
Tarek and Christina must keep their high risk.
You know what? I'm over it.
Flipping business on track.
There really always is a problem.
We have to get along.
Truth.
On an all-new Flipper Flop. Thursday night at 9, only on HGTV.
Troy Cable Security makes it easy to stay aware and stay in control of your home wherever you are. User-friendly interface allows easy navigation for lights, locks thermostat, video, and garage doors. Never worry about leaving your garage door open or the front door unlocked. Your mobile app can send alerts to your phone for alarm and no alarm events. Know when your children arrive home from school with video response. Make sure your home is powered by Troy Cable Security for ultimate access, awareness, and protection.
There's a new surprise ingredient on Chopped. It's me.
There's a new judge on the Chopped scene, making all the chefs up their cuisine. Her name is Martha.
It's a good thing.
She's the one and only gourmet queen. Just like a basket.
I'm full of surprises.
She can break it down and she never compromises. Who will impress and beat the clock?
Whose dish is on the chopping block?